It's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's our goal. Hey, it's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's also a show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Breaking Bread with Tom Papa. This week, we sit down with Mark Flanagan, a.k.a. Flanny, the owner and operator of Largo in Los Angeles. Largo is one of the most beloved places to perform comedy or music in the world. I was lucky enough to start performing there, I don't know, probably 8 years ago or something, and it had been going on much longer before that. It is such a great venue. It just has this great creative atmosphere, and it cultivates freedom, which is what all the performers need, and the audience knows that they're going to get that from the performers, and that's why this place has been successful since the 90s. It all comes from Flanny. It all comes from this owner who is just this great guy who has such a love for life and such a love for entertaining and a love of good things. And that all comes out. Whenever I travel around and perform, the places where the owner is involved have something special about them. It's the same with all of the bakeries and stuff that I talk about. Any place where the owner is directly involved and they have their heart and soul in it, it makes the difference. It makes the difference between those clubs that are just opened up in a mall and nobody cares and nobody checks, and those places like Largo that are actually become a magical destination, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Flanny is also a very good friend of mine. He took me in. We became fast friends as soon as I showed up there, and I love baking bread for him because he loves eating it. And you could just tell from looking at the schedule of who performs there. It's kind of like it's like the artistic world signing off. Everyone from Zach Galifianakis to Sarah Silverman and Judd Apatow and all these great podcasts, and John Bryan and Fleetwood Mac and Randy Newman, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And Larry David and Jeff Garland. It's just great. And I can't be happier to be a part of it, and I can't be happier to introduce you to Flanny. You're going to get the essence of the place just from this interview, and you're going to, as he tells you the story of his beginnings in Belfast, coming over to the U.S., and creating this great place. It is real honor to share it with you. I would break open some wine and share that with you as well. We'll do that next week because Wine Access just sent me a whole bunch of new wine, and I'm so excited. I will share all that with you on next week's episode. Ooh, but they sent some good bottles this week. Oh, Flanny doesn't really drink, so with him, it's all about the bread. Enjoy Breaking Bread with Tom Papa and Flanny. Look at our hats. Look at our hats.
Men without cares.
Now this hat is not planned for the podcast.
No.
This is.
I showed up.
You tell it.
Well, you've got a mirrored door, and I showed up and I was like, "Is he ever going to answer the door?" And you were staring with your hat on from the inside, and it's not a mirrored door; it's just a pane of glass. I went, "Look at us."
But these hats, these are our pineapple weird hats,
Yeah.
which we bought
Within days of each other.
You in Maui.
I'm in Maui, and you sent me a photograph. Texted me a photograph of just, of course, the Tom special, the top of the head with the hat and the glasses. Maybe no glasses. And I had just come out of a place where when I go to Maui, I don't bring any clothes. I bring a pair of shorts. I'm wearing what I'm wearing.
You don't pack?
No. And then I go to 2 days in. I bring 2 pairs of swim shorts. That's it.
Okay.
And then I go to the local mall, and they always have a sale. And I'll go into O'Neill Sports, and I'll just buy the rash guard or a T-shirt. And this was in the front window, and I was like, well, there it is. And I just I was on my way home in the rental car and got your message. I went, no.
It's so hilarious. And you know what? And that's probably 4 years ago.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
And it is
holding on.
I wear it nonstop.
And we were just saying that you can throw this on. You don't have to have it on. You have it on sideways. It just feels good.
It's just,
and it says.
You know what I like about it? It's so stupid.
Yeah.
That it shows that who's ever wearing it, for some reason, has a weird amount of confidence.
Here's the craziest thing about this hat. I didn't even notice they were pineapples.
I didn't either. Well, I knew they were pineapples.
Right.
You didn't know they were pineapples?
No, I kind of looked and went, oh, that's a fruity hat. That looks ridiculous. One of my best friends, Neil Finn, is in a band called Crowded House, and he has a song called Pineapple Head, which I've always loved.
Yeah.
And at that time, my 8-year-old daughter looked at the hat and she went, Pineapple Head. I went, we should listen to that. And she goes, well, yeah, with that hat on.
What I didn't realize is that it has like a little face on the pineapples.
I have never even noticed.
It has a little like devil face in the pineapple. This is so great. I love that the hat's a meaning. Well, thanks for doing this. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Not only do you run the one of the best places for music and comedy in the world, but also you were one of the early people to appreciate my bread.
Yes.
I've been feeding you bread
from the get-go
for quite some time.
Yes.
I'm going to use your camera just to do an action shot.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Look at that. Come on.
That's so beautiful.
And
you know...
And I have to say, feeding you the bread and your appreciation for it...
Oh, my God.
Got me excited to keep going, because you got some of the very, very early loaves.
But also, I had to refrain from... I'm not a big texty kind of like... From sending you 20-minute photographs of... Oh, have you tried it with raspberry jam and Kerrygold butter? Like... And by the way, now it's got to the point when I bring this home, I might have to hide it a bit because there's 4 going at it.
Like raccoons.
And an 11-year-old boy who just eats everything. He'll just cut that in half and go, oh, yeah. You want butter on it? No.
Well, this is going to be your last one for a bit because I got to travel.
But also, you know what I thought of? The last time you came over with the bread, you pulled off in the Tesla.
Yeah.
And I remembered that my favorite bread, apart from this, is in Belfast when we were kids. There's a bakery called the Ormo Bakery.
Ormo?
Ormo. O-R-M-O.
Okay.
And it was on a street which we lived off called the Ormo Road. But the Ormo Road was O-R-M-E-A-U. And the guy that ran the place was like, Ormo. And they were like, how do you spell that? And he just said, O-R-M-O. But he started the company in 1875, right? And his name was Robert Wilson. And they called him Stoney. Stoney Wilson. And he came up with wheat germ before everybody. Like, he was like, this is healthy bread.
Right.
There's tons of vitamin E, tons of vitamin B. And for years in Belfast, it lasted like 150 years.
Jeez.
But what the crazy thing is, when you pulled off in the Tesla, I remember being in school.
Yeah.
And things were like in the 70s in Belfast. It was grim. Bombs, like crazy, right? And there used to be these vans that would drive around and just say Ormo on the side of it. And it wouldn't say Ormo Bakery. It would say Ormo. And they were electric vehicles.
Really?
All electric.
In the 70s?
And you wouldn't hear anything. You'd just see it going by and you're like, oh, that's the bread.
Wow. So they were delivering...
They would deliver with electric vehicles because after the war, they needed all the oil for the war, the gas and stuff like this. So they were like, well, let's charge up a few batteries and see if we can't do this.
Wow, and they pulled it off.
I'll send you a photograph of the vans.
That would be so cool.
It is incredible. But it was like a pure square. And when I saw Elon Musk's pickup truck, it even more reminded me of it because this was like somebody went, okay, we've got a battery. What do we need? You need 4 sides and a roof, pal. Don't get fancy.
Right.
And it's just a box. We would just quietly go down your street. The milkman, you would hear him coming 3 blocks away, you know.
Yeah.
And they would deliver this bread, and it was in parchment paper, and it was like this.
It was like a country loaf?
And you could have it sliced or not sliced.
And
we would fight for the heel. And there would be 2 shifts. And so there was a shop near us that we stopped getting it delivered, but there was a shop near us that you would go at 8 o'clock, and that was the second shift. So they would deliver at 4 in the morning. Right. All of those would just go. Like, people would get there. Yeah. You know. And then we would get it at 8. And at the parchment...
You mean right to your house?
No, into your house. But we stopped getting deliveries because we figured out that the second batch was even fresher. Oh. And it was in the paper, like, you would hurt your hand, like it was hot.
Oh, my God.
And by the time you get home, it's still warm. Oh. And your mom would just put your hand on it and go, oh, right. And you're like, yep.
Did you ever go to the shop? Did you ever see what the
I
shop
passed
was?
it all the time and never went in.
Yeah.
You know, just
Yeah.
like kind of like, and it's not there anymore. I think it's some other place, but it's a historical building. Like he started in 1875.
It's amazing.
And 3 generations of this family did it.
What's amazing about it, I was just reading this book right here, Living
Uh-huh.
Bread.
I have a book for you too, by the way.
Daniel Leader.
Uh-huh.
And he's just, one of these artisan bread bakers who's like kind of like spearheaded the movement. Like he's really into it and going around. And this book, Living Bread, really gets into the wheat, like the ancient grains from all these different areas, and they're trying to regrow it and stuff.
Oh.
And it's like what they're trying to do. I guarantee you, there's somebody in Belfast right now trying to find the wheat that they used to use at the beginning of
kernels.
that bakery. Yeah.
And he used to give to hospitals, I believe, like in City Hospital in Belfast, which is one of the busiest hospitals in the world in the 60s and 70s because of the bombings. Like,
Right.
My sister pointed out that when I was 7, now Belfast is about the size of West Hollywood. I mean, it's not not like LA.
Really?
It's 1 million people spread out.
I always pictured it much bigger.
No, Dublin's only like 1.5 million people, and that's the biggest city. So
Right.
Belfast in the north is. But in 1972, there was 2,600 bombs detonated in Belfast.
In 1 year.
1 year. So it was like every 20 minutes.
In a place the size of
And
West
my
Hollywood.
mum would be like, you know what we could do with that bread? As soon as there was a rattle. You were like, wait, what? She was the ultimate Trump. Like, look over there.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we would all be like, oh, yeah, let's draw ducks. What?
Flanny, were you like, as kids, were you a little shell-shocked by it?
Oh, yeah.
Like, were you nervous?
Yeah. But it was funny because I was listening to Mike from, I don't know if he was the last guest, Open
Mike Eagle?
Open Mike Eagle.
He says hello, by the way.
Oh, good. He's such
Yeah,
a sweetheart.
I told him that you had listened to it, and he was psyched, and he was like, oh, my God, I haven't seen him in a while.
He's one of these, we'll talk about this in a second, but what I was going to say about him, listening to him talking to you and talking about like living in Chicago with his grandparents in the high rise, and his grandfather was the janitor and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm listening to that and I was like, he and I and people like us are built for this time, the pandemic.
Right.
Because we have the third eye. We've been through it. We know we can get through it.
Yeah.
And you live every day as that day.
Right.
That
is your attitude. I mean, that's
it.
what's so contagious about you.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, we became friends when I first showed up at Largo, but then we became fast friends and we meet all the time for coffee and do all this stuff. And it's just, I just know, because I live that way too.
Right.
I very rarely, maybe 2 or 3 times that we've ever gotten together and you were like, I've got troubles.
Yep.
You're always like, yep, I got this. I'm dealing with it.
Right.
It's okay. It's a little burst of sunshine in your day.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the troubles would be, if it's a really big trouble, the only troubles that really would affect me is the health of the family or friends.
Right.
Sick, right?
Yeah.
So the rest is like if it's the landlord at Largo, which has been a constant fucking
Right.
drag.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. Or,
Yeah.
I know that I'm going to get through it, but it's just, I need a second to, like I was listening to Jim Carrey talking the other day, and he was like, he's the perfect example of an extrovert, which is like, he loves to be around people talking.
Right.
He loves to shut down and be by himself. And I'm the same.
Right.
Like, I just sit at home.
When you're home, you flip the switch. You're off.
You know what I really do? I did it yesterday. I'll sit in the beach while the kids are in the water and I'm watching them, and I use it as an excuse to say, "I'll watch you." Like a lot of dads, you look around, they're all sleeping on the beach or you're looking at their phone.
Yeah.
I just look out at the beach and I figure out a whole bunch of things about the next few weeks, or like,
Right.
and it just comes to me, and I'll just sit there and I just stare at the, and then
the
sometimes
best.
everything goes out of focus, and I just start to clearly think about things.
Now, were you kind of this way as a kid?
Yeah.
You were?
Yeah.
So when bombs are going off and you're getting a little, there's a little shell shockness of living in this crazy time, you kind of showed up as a little resilient, optimistic little being.
My
to
mother was
begin
a
with.
little bit of a, she was a nurse. She was in the deep of this stuff.
Really?
Like,
So she was seeing the
she was
people that were
she
affected?
would be at City Hospital, and an ambulance would pull up, and they'd be like, "We're going to be right back with the arm. We know where the arm is, so
my
just
God.
keep him alive."
Oh my God.
She would tell a story. The great thing about her was she passed away 20 years ago, way too young. But she would tell us stuff, and I'm doing the same thing with the kids. It's just like, hey, see this stuff? I'm not hiding. They're 11 and 13. I've never hidden stuff from them.
Right.
And like from the get-go, we always talk about sex or about anything. If they go, well, what? And I just tell them.
Yeah.
Because they're going to find out. But my mum did that. But what she was, she and I had this kind of memory thing that was just, she says, oh, you've got the curse, which is like, I remember everything.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I mean, even reading your book, I can remember pages.
Really?
Yeah. Like beaded blue necklace for Emily.
Uh-huh.
You know, or the MRI, the bed, with the first apartment with Cynthia. Like,
Yeah.
I remember all this shit.
Wow.
Or being at your sister's house in New Jersey, and you know.
That's
and
crazy.
It's not safe
I don't
outside.
even remember that
No,
stuff.
I know, but I can do that. I can do it with Leonard Cohen.
Right?
And it's why when I'm reading, I always have a few books of poetry around, because I'll pick them up and they're short, and I'll just be like,
Uh-huh.
it's soothing to just go,
Oh, completely.
I know what that is.
Yeah, I
You know?
know. You know, I've been reading a lot of poetry lately also.
I leave it
I
around.
do it in
I read-
between books
That's
a lot.
that's what I do.
Yeah.
I'll have like a book of Seamus Heaney's poetry right there, and then I'll be reading. It's funny, I got into this thing in the last few weeks. You know, people are saying that they've run out of things to watch. I'm not.
Yeah.
Netflix and all this stuff, I love it. Whatever.
Yeah. I don't have all the hours. I can't sit and watch
So
these
and
things.
so I will specifically find something like Karen Kilgariff recommended on the Spectrum, or Love on the Spectrum.
Oh, yeah, yeah. The
And
dating show with the autistic
and
kids.
if that had been 2 seasons, I wouldn't have watched it.
Right.
And I spent 4 years working with autistic kids.
Yeah, yeah.
And I looked at it, and she was like, "It's your cup of tea."
Uh-huh.
And it was 5 episodes, and it's perfect.
Perfect. I know.
It's uplifting.
Yeah.
At the same time
Feels
I was
good.
watching that, I was reading Neville Shute's book On the Beach. Have you ever read this book?
No.
It became a movie. It was in the 50s.
Uh-huh.
And it's about after the Second World War, there's some countries, it's fictional, start to really go at it. So the Netherlands gets into a nuclear war with something, and just like small countries.
Yeah.
And then the aftermath of it, this nuclear waste starts to drift towards Australia, and people are dying from the toxins of nuclear waste, right?
Yeah.
And so all these people, at the end of the book, they all like take a pill. They're all suicidal. They see a wind coming over the thing, and they're all like, "Yeah, I'm going to get out before that hits me."
Wow.
Right. And so, but I'm reading that, and then I'll pick up a little bit of poetry, and
Yeah.
then so
and then zig back.
that's my thing. And then
Yeah, me
always with the
too.
music.
Yeah.
You know, I always have a record going on in the background.
Yeah. Have
And
you?
I let it sit. You know, when it sticks at the end, it doesn't get up. I'll just let it sit there for a minute. And I'll be
I
like,
do too. Isn't
Yeah.
that a nice moment?
Yeah.
Just the.
Yeah, I know it's not good for the needle, but I'll just be like, yeah.
I know.
You know,
There's no rush.
Larry David told Garland once at Largo that he cannot read and listen to music at the same time. He's not a big music person to start
Right.
with.
Any music or music with lyrics?
No noise.
No noise. That's tough.
Yeah.
Because I remember as a kid, I wasn't as good of a reader.
Right.
But I could have anything on. I could have Led Zeppelin going.
My trouble is with your book too.
Yeah.
Both is that I'll read it in one go
Right.
and remember everything.
That's
and
so
like,
great.
and people could quiz me on stuff. And I'll be like,
Could
yeah.
you remember lines like if you were an actor? Would you be able to memorize all the lines?
Yes, but I find it desperately boring. I've been in a couple of things that Paul Thomas Anderson's put me in. Luckily, like I mean, you know, he's a
Yeah.
friend. And if any of them had lines, I just wouldn't do it.
Oh,
I
really?
just can't, the repetition in a
Right.
certain way like that. Like I mean, the idea
Yeah.
for me of people doing 8 shows a week on Broadway,
Oh, God.
I just.
Yeah, you couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it. And
So
also
when you
couldn't-
watch comedians come through,
But this is why I love Largo,
right?
is because I encourage everyone, do something new.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything. Just
Yeah.
do whatever you want
I
to do.
It's funny because we've never talked about that, but I know if I go up and I'm just kind of like not feeling it or whatever and just spit out
Mm-hmm.
whatever I've done before, I always feel like you're a little disappointed.
No, no, it's not that. So here's what I love is you'll come in and you'll do like 3 things that are brand new that I love. And
Right.
it'll be on like with Mulaney or whatever show it is.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, hey, come back on Friday. And these people will have never seen you.
Yeah.
And you go up at that set and I just look in their faces and I'm just loving it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
yeah.
they get it.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I don't know how do you, maybe it comes from you. Because it is one of those places the audience comes to expect that the act is going to be a little experimental.
Right.
All the other acts feel like they have to show up and they shouldn't be wasting this time. They should be working.
Right.
And like coming up with new stuff. Like it's a weird combination of really refined stuff,
Right.
but also experimental stuff.
Right. Well,
And did
I
you
do
have that in your
encourage-
mind, or did that just happen?
Well, so like say I just mentioned John Mulaney. John Mulaney said to me years ago, he goes, I want to do a show, but I want to do something different. I said, this is the place to do it. And
Yeah.
the reason it is because there's no recording.
Right.
So you can try shit, and if you fall on your face.
Yeah.
But I generally feel like as soon as you walked on stage, I went, yeah, this guy.
Right.
I have a really clear sense since I was a kid of knowing what I'm going to like.
Right.
And Karen Kilgariff and I had coffee the other day, and she was asking me about something, and I said, a mutual friend that we were talking about, I said, he has that thing of like, he gravitates towards the things he likes, and if he likes them, or that person,
Yeah.
you're in.
Right.
And if he doesn't like you, he won't go, you know.
Right,
And I'm pretty
right.
much the same.
Yeah.
So people will come through and they will kill the audience. They'll be just fantastic. And it's not something personal, but I was just like, yeah, I got that.
Yeah, I know.
But I'm into
it
the
doesn't hit
people
you.
that are like, and so, but it wasn't always the way at Largo, because I've had Largo for over, 2 Largos. There was one on Fairfax. And it was only when I moved to the La Cienega and put up the red curtain and the lights and put everything up. Funny enough, Zach Galifianakis was the first. We were in the old Largo, and I said, hey, I want to show you something. He goes, okay. So we get in my car, and we drive. It was so funny because I said, it's the new Largo. And he goes, what are you talking about? And most people were very encouraging, and he was too.
Well,
he
how?
was like,
But wait,
you're
how?
not getting rid of this one, are you?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, how long was the first Largo around? Because I missed the first
13
Largo.
years.
13 years.
Almost 14 years, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so he was like, "Oh no, you're going to change the place on me."
14 years, because this one is almost 13 years.
Wow.
27 years. Conan and I were talking about similar timeline from him.
Oh, really? For his career?
Yeah, and it was funny because I woke up this morning and there's an old not an old Gary Shandling. There's a joke that Gary Shandling told right before he died, which was and it was not long after Robin Williams died. Mm-hmm. And they were the same age, and it was just every part of it was tragic.
Oh, yeah, that one hurt.
And it did. And he was on stage and he said, it was the last time I think he performed, and he goes, it's terrible to lose a friend. And that guy was a gem. And he said, the only upside is when you hear Wolf Blitzer go, 64, so young. He says, I think pretty much the only time they say 64 is young. Well, I woke up this morning, they were talking about Kamala Harris, and she's my age.
Right.
She's so young. Like they kept saying, she's really young.
Oh, nice.
I'm
a rookie again. So when you brought Zach over to the new spot.
So Zach and I, but the funny thing about it was, we drove down, so the old Largo was on Fairfax Avenue between Rosewood and Oakwood. These are the cross streets.
Right.
I always feel like it's a New York thing because it's actual cross streets.
Yeah, yeah.
We get in the car and I just went the whole side street down Oakwood and stopped at La Cienega, and I said, see this theater? I said, I just took the rent over. And he goes, what are you talking about? And I said, you'll see. And he was like, you don't want to give up that old spot. And I was like, and so we walk in, and it was totally disheveled. Like there was paint dripped off. Like there was no curtains, nothing on the stage.
Right.
A lot of the seats were actually broken. There was no seat there.
Wow. I mean, it's a historic building.
Yeah. And I walked in, and it also had been a place for rent, so people would come in, do their thing, make it beautiful, and then tear it apart.
Oh, okay,
tear all their
just
shit
a
out.
space, yeah.
And ironically, the last thing that was in there was a 2-week run, and they cut it short, and they ran out of money, and I think they had one guy just come in and rip things off walls, and it looked awful.
Wow.
But so I didn't really want to show Zach the worst version of it.
Yeah.
But we sat there, and I said, I'm going to do this, and he goes, hold on a second. He goes, even like this, it's fantastic.
Wow.
And it was so
You felt
encouraging.
it. You could feel it.
But what I was going to say is then when he came back on opening night, or even before we opened, and I showed him the curtain and the piano and the rug and everything, and he was like, I have to up my game. I can't be fucking around. He's always joking. But the thing is, that translated.
There's honesty to
like
that,
Paul F.
yeah.
Tompkins and everybody, they were like, oh, I better dress a bit. Maybe I should. Yeah.
It's a theater.
It's a theater.
Yeah, I know. It changes
upped the
the
game.
audience and it changes the act.
Yeah. But people didn't appreciate any sort of ideas of experimenting or you know what I mean. People would do
right.
That,
but that's a good answer to that question because people still want to experiment, but it was a little more important in a way.
To answer to also, it's me encouraging.
Yeah.
But it's also me looking for signs and going, to do that.
Right.
If they talk about something backstage, and it'll be like a Nick Kroll show, and he's fantastic, and it'll be somebody who's a guest on the show. I have this idea for a show, but you can tell they don't even want to say it because it might be a bit daft. And I'll be like, no, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
I have an idea for Mike for a show that it was just like, but he has no idea that I have an idea for this. And at the right time, I'll hit him up and go, here's,
Right.
And he's such a lovely guy. But
so when you were a kid and you were like, where were you getting all of this music and what was hitting you at the time?
Irish people, it's like, it sounds romantic for me to say it, and I'm sure if Irish friends were watching this, they'd be like, come on, he's been away for too long. But literally every Irish person that I know is an amazing singer.
Yeah.
Can read poetry. Can retain poetry. And have a certain dignity about. They're definitely a literary thing, And because in the 80s, when Thatcher, she was the president of England, that was devastating time. That was Reagan here, but in a really oppressive time.
oppressive time for
all of Britain and Ireland as a result, because Ireland relies on Britain for trade and stuff like
Yeah.
this here. So it was devastating. There were strikes all the time.
Right.
It was really bad. So unemployment was the highest it had ever been. And so what would people do? They'd either go to Australia or America. Those were the two choices, because England had no
Right.
jobs. Previously, they would go to London. They would go to Liverpool, the nearest port.
Yeah.
When I was graduating from college in the mid-'80s, or from high school, in the mid-'80s, the only thing you do was go to college,
Right.
because there was no jobs.
Right. Just
So
keep
they're the
going to
most
school.
educated now. Like, there's people my age that have double degrees. They just went, I guess, 4 more years?
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Right.
Just they're paying me.
Yeah.
So the government would pay you to go to college.
Oh my God, that's so
and
perfect.
so it's a really, in general, an educated
Yeah.
bunch. You
Yeah.
know?
No, and there's such a poetry.
And there's
to
a
the-
completely big difference between the north of Ireland and the south of Ireland.
Yeah.
And the north of Ireland is 6 counties. It's small.
Mm-hmm.
It's unaffected by tourism because of all the bombings and stuff like that. But they have a sense of humor that is just
killer.
and it's because it's everything is like they get life. They're just like, we could be gone in a second.
What's it like now? Like, is
a little bit of-
is there some of the the old guard that still resents?
Yes. Well,
yeah.
so what's happening is, like, for years it was just this homeostasis of like, it's the same it's ever going to be, and people give up. They were just like, oh fuck,
Yeah.
And
it was a fight that couldn't be won, right? I mean,
it could be won. It could be won. I mean, the truth of it is, so America and everywhere in the world got the story that the Irish people they're fighters.
Right.
The British came in, and for example, Belfast, where I'm from, that's where they built the Titanic.
Uh-huh.
It was the shipbuilding capital of Europe.
Wow.
It was also, Northern Ireland was the linen capital of Europe, and the Brits took all the money from that.
Right.
The locals never saw any of it. They just worked,
Yeah, yeah.
and they never wanted to give that up. And so in the 1916, when there was a rising in Ireland, they agreed to take the north of Ireland, and that they would eventually leave. There was a policy in place that they would leave 1966
Right.
or whatever it was.
Oh, okay.
And they never left because it was too good.
Oh.
And at that point, they had appointed so many people from England to have great jobs in Northern Ireland that there was a lot of English Protestants that were living there. And then, but the national, like, Catholic is the predominant religion in Ireland.
Right.
So they made it about Catholics against Protestants. It was always about Irish people going, your time is up.
Right.
Get the fuck out of here.
Get out of here, and they wouldn't go. They had
Yeah,
their-
but they did this
had their
propaganda
roots.
thing. The Brits did this propaganda thing. Like Churchill, all of them, like from the get-go, those people can't be happy. They just can't be
Oh.
happy. Look at what we give them. We give them shipbuilding. No, you took the shipbuilding.
Oh, of
So-
course.
So in a nutshell, it's
jeez.
it's a national thing. Like, so it could be east if the Brits just went, you know what, you're right, it's your country.
Yeah.
Like in the 90s, they were fighting Falkland Islands in Argentina.
Right.
You know, it's just
Exactly.
it's in them still. Like,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah. They still always want a piece.
Yeah, and so it's like colonialism. I think it's mostly gone, but Ireland right now is like everywhere. It's dealing with the pandemic, and my mother's side of the family have the oldest family-operated bar in Belfast. It's
Really?
called Lavery's, and it's 5-story. It's unbelievable, beautiful,
Oh my God.
great people. But for the first time since, like, I think they opened 1918.
Yeah.
This is the first time it's been closed for more than a few consecutive nights, and it's been closed since March.
Wow.
And they reopened recently just to do. They were allowed to open on a Friday and Saturday for 6 hours, and that's it. And these people are just going with it.
Yeah.
If you would have told them, like,
Yeah.
we're going to close that bar for a month, because
Right.
it's the national pastime, is drinking and chatting at a bar, you know.
Right. Oh my God. I
And,
know that's why all the great storytellers
yeah.
and the.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but when you were
But politically, there's what's going on politically is Brexit is still looming, and so what makes a difference with Ireland. Essentially, at some point, they're going to give up. It's almost like the old white guard, like Trump and Pence and all these fucking idiots. It's a matter of time before the dark skins are equally taken care of.
Right,
You know?
yeah.
And so it's the same thing in Ireland, that they're holding on to dear life. But with Brexit, what comes in, they have to put up the border again on north and south of Ireland, because Northern Ireland is part of Britain. And Britain wants out of, but the south of Ireland's like, oh no, we're part of the EU. We're putting our money with them.
Right.
So if a border goes up, all hell's going to break out. You know, it's going to be.
Yeah, it's going to bring up all the old.
All the old shit will come up again.
Oh man! So when you were a kid and you're hearing all these bombs and your mom's trying to distract you by, hey,
Yeah.
look at the bread, she must have been worried that you're going to get to a certain age and be dragged into this.
The only time that we were uncomfortable was, so my mum, in order to keep she would work night shifts at the hospital, so she would be with us during the day, like get us to school, do the whole
Right,
thing.
right.
I don't know when she ever slept.
Yeah.
The worst times when the two of them would go out for drinks with friends. and you'd hear bombs. And you're like, they're not coming back.
Oh,
and
God.
you'd hold your breath until you hear the front door open.
Right.
You know, and then when you'd hear them laugh, you'd be like, oh.
Oh, yeah.
And I bet my two sisters and my brother don't remember that as much. I do.
Yeah.
I remember actually resenting my cousin as a babysitter when she'd come in. I'd be like, this is
God.
risky. It's almost like the virus. It's like,
Yeah, it's kind of very similar, isn't it? Like you're really going to go out.
I'd be rude to her. Like, not put me to bed. We're good. At 7.
Yeah,
At the age of
right.
7, we have an understanding, you know. And it was that thing. But I mean, listen, you
Yeah.
get over all. I mean, there's certain parts that stays with you in your body, like everything.
Sure.
That you're just like, and so, but it gives me that daily attitude of like,
Yeah.
I can get through shit.
Yeah.
We went through all that, you know.
Yeah.
So
what was the music? Because you're such a we share a love of jazz.
yeah.
But at that age, there's jazz isn't in your head.
Well, so my mother wouldn't have loved. Yeah, there would have been.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about Hello Dolly with Dude with the Cane.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, Louis Armstrong. So I would
Yeah.
watch anything with Louis Armstrong, even
Yeah.
if it was hokey. I didn't give a shit.
No, who cares? You just want to see his
and
face.
I always wanted to be a black man. Like, I mean, I just like Marvin Gaye,
Yeah.
and, you know, Sidney Poitier, the
Yeah.
most beautiful. I'd be like, look at these.
I
fuckers.
know.
I always felt gypped.
Sitting there with your little pale skin.
the pink skin and the fucking and the girls say, you've got lovely eyes. Yeah, go fuck yourself. You know. But the thing is that the music
it's so
came.
funny.
My parents had. They would have parties on a Saturday night, and they would have records, and they play the records, and it would be Simon & Garfunkel's greatest hits,
Right.
and it would be Neil Diamond's greatest hits,
Right.
and they'd all stop and sing some blue, and you'd hear it all, and we'd be upstairs just laughing at them, and they're drunk as fuck. But they would also have like the Beach Boys' greatest hits, not Pet Sounds, but Beach Boys' greatest hits.
Yeah, yeah.
And you'd listen to a few of these, and you'd be like, and then fucking Good Vibrations or God Only Knows would come on, and you'd be like.
Oh yeah.
And that's the testament to the Irish people too. Even when drunk, they'd be singing along like "I'm talking about goo," and then God Only Knows would come on, and they'd all just be quiet,
Right.
And they wouldn't skip it; they'd listen to it, and then it's like
and then back to
la
it.
la la, la la la, you know. So those songs were there,
And was that planting little seeds about America in your head? Were you
Always.
You were like
always ready to go to America, always
Right.
wanted to go.
really?
On New Year's Day, and I still have a fixation on it. On New Year's Day every year, we only had 3 TV channels: BBC One, BBC Two, and then the Irish channel. BBC One, every New Year's Day, when everyone was hungover like fuck, they would show The Great Escape with Steve McQueen
Oh god.
every year.
So great.
And I would sit down, and it would just be there'd be some candy left over from some, you know.
Yeah.
And I would sit down and watch. It's like 3 hours long, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And every time, it wasn't actually Steve McQueen that did the jump where he, you know, but he doesn't escape ultimately.
Yeah.
But he doesn't die. But I would just be looking at that like, there's a way.
I can get out of here.
Fucking way. Digging tunnels. Honestly, like I was just
Really?
like, obsessed.
You were seeing that as
Yeah.
a,
Even the other day,
a
Conan
metaphor for getting out of
Yeah, Conan O'Brien was shooting the thing at Largo, and it was outside, and he looked across, and you know, like Cynthia, your wife, I call Sin. You know,
Yeah.
they've changed after 30 years. Live Nude Girls has changed to Sin, SYNN. That club across from Largo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's where like the Go-Go's video, they go by girls,
Yeah.
you know, Live Nude Girls.
Yeah.
And they changed it to Sin. And so Conan and I are standing there, and they're wiring him up for him to do a shot.
Uh-huh.
And I looked across, and he goes, have you ever been in that place? I went, no, but Charlie Bronson style, I'm digging a tunnel. And he totally got it. You know, he was like, Great Escape, I get it.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
So so you did have all these songs and it's so cool. It was all vinyl too, and
All
like,
vinyl.
and then now back to vinyl.
Not even cassettes. Like I remember
Yeah.
we didn't have a cassette player until we'd moved out of Belfast, and I was like, what the fuck's
Yeah.
that thing? A box? You know?
Yeah. So just all completely around you. Now, and you're going to school? Were you a good student?
I was photographic memory, so I
Right.
didn't have to work at all.
Ah, right.
I would look at a geography teacher, and I would hear you go, now this is important. I'd be like, polka dot tie, got it. And then it would come up in the question, I would remember his polka dot tie, and then I would just remember him saying things, and I would just,
Oh, polka dot tie. Oh,
association.
really?
Yeah, or check jacket, or something. Look at his hair. Oh, okay, right. Remember that hair.
No way.
Yeah, and then so I
Did
would
that just come to you? Like
It was always there.
It was
There's two
always-
things that are always there, and one of them is the curse that my mother said, that is the memory.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is just, I think, is I can spot somebody. I don't judge somebody on the first thing, but
Uh-huh.
I get an essence of somebody pretty fast.
Right.
know.
Yeah.
It's like Jeff Tweedy's wife, Susie.
Yeah.
I love her, and she just had a birthday, and she we were at a Wilco gig years ago at the Palladium, and there was a drunk guy, And she didn't know me that well.
Yeah.
And I'd been watching this guy. He was starting to make his way over. And it was up on the balcony where it was like friends of...
Yeah.
And I was there with Garland, who was friends with him. I wasn't even friends with those guys at that point.
Yeah.
And I was watching this guy for a good 20 minutes. And I was like... And then Tweedy's doing like, you and I... And he's getting a bit loud. And I'm like, ooh. And I clocked him from the get-go. And he comes over and he stands in front of Susie. And she's sitting trying to watch the show.
Right.
And he starts dancing. And then he's starting to fall and the drink is spilling a bit.
Oh, God.
And Garland's looking at him, and Garland looks around to look at the stage. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have to take this guy out. I'm going to have to take him out. And then Susie just goes, excuse me, you're in my way. And he goes, yeah, I paid a ticket. And she goes, that's my husband. I want to see him. And the guy immediately went, like he went to grab her.
What?
And I'm by the way, never been in fights.
Yeah.
But I just cut him out from under. I just got right in the back of his leg. He went down. I had my foot on his neck before anything happened.
Nice.
But
Kung
again,
fu.
I don't drink. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll drink a glass of wine, but I'm not a drinker.
You know, you're not.
But I was on to this guy for 30 minutes beforehand.
Just eyeballing. You just felt
I
his
think I would be a
energy,
great
you saw him.
negotiator. Yeah, I'd be a good negotiator because I could get in there and go, okay, this guy's not going to go the distance. But
Right.
this guy I could talk to, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway,
yeah.
turns out it was the manager's... The manager was a woman. It was her husband or boyfriend.
Right.
And then he was like, I'm going to get you kicked out. And I'm like, not with my foot on your neck, you're not, you know. And then they came and they picked him up like and carried him like a stretcher out of there.
Just like a
And
piece
Susie
of meat.
just looked at me and went, oh.
My hero.
So,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know.
Now you're in with Tweety for the rest of your life.
Exactly. Tweety doesn't like it too much, but, you know.
Did you get to see shows when you were a kid before you?
No.
What age did you leave?
So I left when I was like 12. Which
When
is
you were
really young.
12?
Yes, but never left. So when we were 12, a couple terrible things happened. One of my mum's favorite uncles was killed by a bomb.
Oh, God.
And there was a couple of years before this.
Yeah.
But she was like, I'm out. I can't
can't
not
do
doing
this anymore.
We didn't have money to go to America, but she was like, we're going to go to the south of Ireland. It's safer.
Oh.
But she also didn't want to leave her parents. She was very close to her parents and her family, and she had
Yeah.
4 sisters, and she was just like, or 3 sisters, you know, and a brother. And she was like, we're all family. We're not, you know.
Yeah.
And there was a little bit of a pact. They're all still there, by the way. None of them
they?
have ever left. Yet my mother, when we moved, all 3 of my siblings and I live in America. We moved right after like college, high school, boom, gone.
Gone.
And it was just
Yeah.
that's where we're going.
Just knew
I have
it.
hundreds of cousins that never left. And it was never a notion. We were
Right.
never like, oh.
They
you know.
weren't dreaming it
And
the
they
way you
travel
were.
all over the world.
Yeah.
They do. But I was from the get-go. But it was music
Right.
was the number one thing.
It was.
And I would hear things like, you know, very, very, I remember being very young when I heard Marvin Gaye and I was like, oh, it really hit me.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he was singing that, this magic moment. It was not even one of his own songs.
Yeah.
And then when What's Going On came out, I was like,
Yeah.
I mean, I was, you know, when I got it, I was much after.
Yeah.
But anyway, so music was a big thing. But so ironically, my mother was like, well, where should we move to? So we moved to the west coast of Ireland, which is a beautiful place. But they were scared shitless of us. They were like, ooh. It was like, these guys might have the virus. You know, don't go close.
Oh, really?
And then
They
there
could
was
just
another
tell?
element of them where like, oh, they fucking quit. You know.
Oh.
So there was a little bit of, and
Right.
then we got into this house and we looked out the back, and so being in Northern Ireland, you're British,
Right.
but you're very much Irish, especially if you're a Catholic.
Yeah.
My passport's Irish.
That's the Irish, right?
We went out and there's a beautiful mountain in Sligo called Ben Bulben, and William Butler Yeats is buried at the base of this.
Oh, wow.
And I looked at it and I was like, oh, that's Ben Bulben Mountain. That's Yeats.
Yeah.
Like, this is... And they're like, that's his country. Yeats' country is Sligo. And I looked at it, and somebody had painted in 20 feet high so that we could see it. It was miles away. Brits out.
Brits out.
They didn't want us.
Right.
So it took a couple of years of that.
But
But
that
by
had
the
to
way,
be weird. But that had to be weird because you're feeling so
patriotic.
You're feeling
like we're not-
Irish. You're
yeah, we're
you're
back in
Catholic.
Ireland. Yeah.
But yet you have to carry the Brits part of it,
the only good thing about
which
it
is the part that you're rebelling against.
Yeah. When we went to school, people did not fuck with me. Like, there was like, you know, there's like the bully thing.
Yeah.
Never happened in my life.
Right.
Because they were like, who knows what he's seen.
Oh,
And I had it in my eyes, and I carry myself not in an arrogant way, but there's a thing about me that I don't think I'll fuck with him. But so
Right.
that worked to the advantage. But that was the only thing.
So you didn't have to.
They wouldn't
fight.
talk to you. They
Wow.
wouldn't like.
What a
you'd see
confusing-
girls staring at you, and they'd be like, "Never go near you," you know. and you're like,
Right.
"All
Yeah.
right." So what happened was, and that's why I said that we never really left. Every odd weekend, we'd be back in Belfast because we're like, it's rough down there.
Right.
It's rough.
But it was safer.
It was safer.
I mean,
There was no
socially it
bombs.
was a thing, but
No
it was no
bombs.
bombs, right?
And it's not that far away. Like, it was.
Yeah.
less than the distance from here to San Francisco, you know.
Right.
You know, it's probably the distance from here to Santa Barbara.
So what was the first live show you ever saw?
The very first one was, here's the thing is there was a lot of, from a kid, so from the age of 13, I worked in bars, and there was always bands. So I saw a lot of different, but they were all local people, like, who would be, there would be a country night, and there'd be a guy up there who looks like really freckly and glasses, and he'd say, here's a song now by Hank Williams Sr., and then phonetically, I tried so hard, my dear, to show. Like, sounded exactly like the record, right? Right, lads, lash into it, you know. And that was my first. Those were the first gigs,
right?
But like I saw.
Oh, but that's cool. But it's
in a bar atmosphere. The first major show that I went to. There was a festival that I went to that had a lot of people that I love, and there were big festivals started in the 70s, like, you know. It was like, oh, you know. But when I was 16, I went to see Dylan in London, which was, people were like. It was like you and I going, we're going to Mars.
Right.
Like in your book. No, but we're going to Mars.
Right.
They were like, how are you going to do that? And I'm like, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And it's Dylan, Neil Young, none of these people would play in Ireland because Belfast, the bombs, it would get cancelled. There'd be bomb threats.
Not even Dublin? They wouldn't go
No, they'd play, but there wasn't enough money for them to go to just one place. So now when people play in Ireland, they play Dublin, Belfast, Galway, and Cork.
Right.
So there's 4 cities.
Right.
But in the American press, it just everything about Ireland was negative. It was like another 12 bombs this week,
right?
You know, and so touring companies were just like, we're not risking it.
Right.
I don't think they could even get insurance to go to Ireland. You know? So Bob Dylan did 5 nights in 1981 at this place called the Earl's Court Theatre, and I took a bus, a boat, a train, another bus to get to this thing, and I slept. I had no money. I slept out all night.
By yourself?
Yeah.
All by yourself?
I did this twice. The second time I had a little bit more money, stayed in a bed and breakfast was. Prince at Wembley in 1986, and it was the last of Prince and the Revolution.
Wow!
I was like, I have to see this.
Yeah,
I have to see it. I saw Miles Davis the same year. He didn't come to Ireland either. And I was like, I got to go to see them. Same thing with Dizzy Gillespie. He lived longer, but
so was Dylan on your? I mean, obviously he was. He was already
huge.
Had his
I
claws into you.
was 15 when John Lennon died.
15, yeah, right.
And I love John Lennon. Like I was just like, and by the way, until I met like John Bryan, I didn't really care about the Beatles.
Right.
I was like, I like John Lennon.
Yeah.
I like some George Harrison.
Yeah.
McCartney, I could take it or leave it.
Right.
Now when I listen to the combination of the 4 of them, I go, oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But Dylan was the guy.
Dylan was it.
And here's the thing with Dylan, it was
so 81 was that Slow Train?
81 was Shot of Love.
Shot of Love.
And he was coming out of the religious thing, so there was Saved, Slow Train Coming.
Right.
And then Shot of Love came out, and it has that song. By the way, so this is all my education, by the way, is through music.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Like Tom Waits. Like, I didn't know. I'd be walking down Vine Street, and I'd be like, oh, Heart Attack and Vine.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Or I never knew what a hubcap was. You know.
Yeah.
And so through songs that you'd be like, and Dylan especially, like the references, you'd read all the books, like whoever it was. But he sat down at a white piano. And I was right in front, 18,000 people. I was leaning over the front.
How'd you get a ticket back then in 81?
You applied for tickets? You had to apply for tickets.
Oh,
it was
really?
like a lottery thing. And I got one. And I was like, oh. And my friend Tiernan and his brother got one too. And they went, but they went a different night.
Uh-huh.
And
oh, you must have been so excited.
He comes out, and the album Shot of Love, which is not one of his big albums, hadn't come out in America. Or hadn't come out in Europe, I mean. But he was still doing the tour. And he sits down at a white piano, and I'd never seen him play piano.
Yeah.
You know, and he did Lenny Bruce's Dead.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't know who Lenny Bruce is, but I got to check him out.
Right.
You know, and then he sang Every Grain of Sand, and I was like, this is
beautiful.
about the best song I've ever heard.
Beautiful
One
song.
after another. In the Summertime. And
all stayed at the piano the whole time?
No. Every Grain of Sand, I think, and Lenny Bruce's Dead were 2 piano pieces. The rest, he was electric or acoustic.
Right.
You know, but
God.
And he talk about power. But here's the thing: it was within a year of John Lennon being killed.
Oh yeah.
And what I think about now is people were in the press in England, they were like, Dylan looks old. He's gotten fat. He was wearing a bulletproof jacket because there was a death threat out on him too.
Jeez.
So he had a leather,
right. So it looked like Santa.
And that's why they didn't come near Ireland, because it was like, maniacs are killing John Lennon in New York. We can't take chances.
Oh, must have. Yeah.
And I remember my friend Brian and I in Ireland just sitting there going, what would we do if they killed Bob? And that was when we were 15.
Isn't that crazy? That I never thought about the other artists thinking the ramifications of Lennon being for us it was just like, oh my God, in your own little teenage head. It was, but the thing of like, it was like MLK or JFK.
Right.
It was just like,
oh, I cried. You know what? It's funny because I recently said I still haven't gotten over it.
yeah,
the thing that
December. I remember we
Right,
were
Christmas.
we were shopping for a Christmas tree
and here's
came
the-
home and I heard it on my little radio.
Yeah, and the weird thing about it for me was, like, if he'd have been killed after he did the Plastic Ono record, which is Mother, all those
Yeah.
songs, you'd be like, oh, what a waste.
Yeah.
This was him having retired for 5 years, getting back into music and being so optimistic, like
Yeah.
starting over.
Yeah.
And reflecting on watching the wheels go round and round. And it was like he was at peace in his life,
Yeah.
And he had a kid and he was baking bread.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing.
Yeah.
He'd learned how to make bread.
Oh, really? I didn't know that part.
He called it the house husband period. That period
Right,
of
yeah.
when Sean was born. He just
Right.
gave up everything.
Right.
And he spent all his time with Sean for 5 years, baking bread, cooking for him.
Jeez Louise.
And then but those songs like resonated when it came on the radio, like starting over. People were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, he's lost his bite," and I'm like, "I think this is pretty great."
Right, exactly. This is gonna hold up. Oh my
Yeah.
God, it's such a funny thing to picture you at the Dylan show, being completely blown away, and then knowing you have no place to sleep.
But okay, so
you
here's
got to
the
go
funny,
right back home.
Here's the funny thing is, I bought the ticket, and I remember the ticket being like £16, which was now like $1,600, like for at that point.
Wow.
It was a big ticket.
Whoa.
I bought the one way on the bus, one way on the train, and I remember my dad saying to me, "You're coming back, right? I mean, why are you buying it's actually just as cheap to do a round trip." I said, "It's not. I looked into it. It's like £12 more to do a round trip. I'm just going to have the ticket and just jump on." They're like, "Oh, are you Woody Guthrie? Is this the Dust Bowl? Is that what you're doing?"
Oh, Bo Flanny.
Yeah. And so here's the crazy thing is I got on the train and I had my ticket.
Yeah.
No, you could get on the train and then they would come around to check your ticket. So
Right.
the train would be, so the train wasn't taking off and I was like, oh, fuck it, here comes the guy.
Oh, good.
Conductor's coming down. He's like, tickets, all right, tickets. And he looked at me and goes, "You don't have a ticket, do you?" And I went, "No, I do have a ticket. And let me just find it." And he was like, "Come on, mate, don't waste my time." And I was like, "Listen, you know what? By mistake, bought a one way, but I need to get back to Ireland." He goes, "Off the train, mate.
Oh.
Don't give me shit. Just get off the train." And I just got off the train. And I stood there and I had no money whatsoever. And I walked out, it was Houston Station, and I walked outside and I just looked around and there was a church across the street. Mm-hmm. And I went, "I'm going to pull a number on this." Like, I wasn't trying to be a scammer or whatever, but
Yeah.
I went over and I knocked on the door of the rectory next to it, and I knocked on and this guy comes out. And this happened to me yesterday, by the way, a similar thing. The guy comes out and I said, "Hey, Father, I'm a Catholic from Ireland, and I came here the whole way to see Bob Dylan, and I haven't got a ticket to get back. Is there any way you could help me out?" And he goes, "Well, when's the next train?" I said, "It's probably tomorrow." And he goes, "Come in." He fed me, put me up in this cot,
No.
couldn't have been nicer.
Whoa.
All he wanted to talk about, how was the show?
Really?
So he would have been in his 20s, and I was
Yeah.
15, but or maybe I was just 16.
Yeah.
But anyway, and it was just this thing, and I will never, I'm never been religious, but, the
Yeah.
Catholic Church in Ireland has a lot to answer for.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of good eggs.
Right.
You know.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And yesterday there was or the day before yesterday, so I had a nail in my tire in my car, and I was like, I don't want to take it out in case the thing deflates, so I'll bring it to the station.
Yeah.
So I went down to the garage in the corner, and I just said, "Hey, there's a nail in this," and they were like, "Oh, all right." And there was something weird, they weren't the friendliest people.
Yeah.
These Armenian guys, and I'd been there before, and they were okay.
Yeah.
So the guy done, he goes, "Okay, come back in 20 minutes," and I was like, "All right, what do I do for 20 minutes?" So I went over to the coffee shop, that coffee fix thing, and I stood on the corner because I was like trying to distance from everyone.
Yeah, right,
with the mask
exactly.
on.
Yeah.
And I look and I see that he's done, and he's moving the car back and forward, and I went, "He looks done." So it's after 10 minutes, I went, "Fuck, I'm just going to walk over there." So I went and grabbed the guy an orange juice, and I went over because I know him. I've seen him on the street, and I was like, "Hey, I got you an orange juice." He goes, "Oh, thank you so much. It's great, very good. Get out of here fast. Your car's fine." And I went, "Oh," and he was pushing me into the car like, "You're good." And I'm like, "Okay, but how much do I owe you?" And he goes, No, you did a beautiful job. Just leave." And I was like, this is the opposite of when I pulled in.
Yeah.
When I pulled in, he was like, So I get home, get out of the car, close the door, and the whole side of my car is scraped.
No.
And when he was moving it, he fucking scraped it.
Ah.
Right? And there was no other way that this happened because I only went there and went home. And I looked at it and I was like, fuck.
I think he's being...
So the next day, a friend of mine says to me, this is all this week, my
Yeah.
friend Chris, who I play tennis with, says, "There's a guy on Barham and he's really nice. At least he'll give you a good price."
Right.
And I went, "Great." So what else have we got to do these days? So I drove over there.
Yeah.
He was off at a funeral, and the guy that was working there was like, "I'll take photographs and I'll get him to give you an estimate."
Yeah.
So an hour later, Harry calls me and he goes, I'm gonna bring your car and can you bring it tomorrow? I said, sure. And he goes, okay, very nice. He says, excuse me, I'm dealing with my 14-year-old nephew died, and I'm dealing with that right now, but I will take care of your car. I said, oh man, I can come anytime.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. He couldn't have been nicer. And I said, I hate to ask you while we're on the phone, but I'll pay you cash. How much is it? And he goes, I won't charge you for this.
What?
I'm like, oh no, it's damage. I mean, by the way, this is not just like a scrape.
Yeah.
This was
Dug in.
Yeah. Paint gone.
Ugh.
And it's a newish car. And I was like, oh, but anyway. So he says, bring it in tomorrow. So I bring it in tomorrow. I said to my wife, I got to give these guys something, but I can tell they don't want any money. So pulled in. The guy was like, okay, this guy here, he's going to match your paint. He's been doing high-end cars since the 70s. And he's got the old DuPont paint. And I said, hey, guys, whatever you can do is great. I appreciate anything,
Yeah.
So they call me up. I get back the next morning, and they have detailed my car. Like, we go to the beach every week. There's not a grain of sand in the fucking place.
Yeah.
And the thing looks brand new. The job they did was brand new.
Oh, my God.
And I tried to give the guy money. He was like, no. Harry doesn't want to take any money for this. I'm like, hey, do you think I'm somebody else?
Yeah, right,
exactly. I know this,
Yeah.
And he says, no, the two guys worked around the clock to get this done for you. And I was like, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So I get home and I text Harry and says, I know you're dealing with a lot right now. This really means a lot to me. And he goes, I give the guy $300 cash. I just said, hey, the painter guy said, thank you so much.
Yeah.
He put it on they wouldn't take, I don't know what's going on really.
Yeah.
But then I just went, it's goodness. It's just somebody being.
They're just being nice.
And so it turns out they're Armenian.
Uh-huh.
And when the guy said, what happened to your car? And I said, I pulled it in to get a nail out in the station. He goes, what station? And I just told him the station. I didn't say.
Yeah.
And he goes, And so the guy texts me and he goes, you were due a good turn. Like, And I said, well, I've got a couple of old cars. I'll bring them by there. And he goes, all good.
Wow.
But it was like the priest when I was 15. It was just like,
intervening.
And it was, I don't believe in any religious stuff for me, but it was just a thing of like, my sister or somebody, my daughter asked me, do you think there's an afterlife? Or, and I'm like, who knows? We'll find out, But I'm not saying there is or there isn't, but I don't believe there is. I mean, when our body's done, we're done.
Right.
But there's been a lot of things in my life that happen that are just like, okay, something's pushed me over that way a bit.
Right, exactly.
I didn't have to go over there.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, Largo is that.
Yeah,
I came
was
out
gonna
here.
say.
I never done music business before or comedy or any of it.
Yeah.
And I came out here to teach in LA from Boston.
Okay.
And a friend of mine's like, hey, my brother's opening a bar and you know a bit about music, right? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, can you just give him a few pieces of advice?
Yeah.
And I walked in, this when it was on Fairfax, and he was buying this place called Cafe Largo. Mm-hmm. And it was an French-Italian restaurant with a little stage in the corner. Uh-huh. And I said, hey, man, I don't know about food, but, you could make it a better stage than the one that's in there.
Yeah.
And so we went back on a night that there was music, and it was Grantley Buffalo, which is Grantley Phillips.
Uh-huh.
And it was still, like, to me, one of the most memorable shows I've ever seen. And it was raining outside. I'd just gotten here.
Uh-huh.
It was raining outside, and I was like, look at these fucking guys. They were playing like there was 20,000 people.
Really?
There was like 13 people in the place.
Wow.
Including wife and family and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just stood there, and the partner at the time, I didn't know it was going to be a partner. He said to me, listen, if you book, I'll make you a 25% partner.
Whoa.
I can't give you money right now. And I was like, sure.
Whoa.
And that's when I decided, I'll stay here a while. So I did a sabbatical. I was like, I'm going to take time out,
Oh, you were expected to go back to Boston at the time?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, but it was one of those things that I'm supposed to do this for.
So how did you start booking? How like you didn't know
Easiest
people?
thing in the world. So there was a record store that I went to in Boston on Kenmore Square, and when I left, the guy was like, hey, there's a friend of mine called Keith, lives in LA, lives in Venice. You should stay with him. And I'm like, stay with him? What do you mean? He goes, you should stay there for a while. You'd like it.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, oh, okay. And so I came out, but there was a few guys that I knew in Boston that were musicians that had moved out here. And ironically, there's a small, like everywhere, there's a small batch of people. So John Bryan, Amy Mann, a bunch of other band called the Cave Dogs, Mark River. There's all these people are part of this Boston scene.
Okay.
And so they were out here. And so a friend of mine, Bill Murphy, said to me, there's this guy, John Bryan. He can play any instrument. And I'm like, that's great, but does anyone know him?
Yeah.
Because that's what you need.
Yeah.
And he goes, nobody's mixing Amy Mann's first solo record right now out here. He's out here. He's not living here.
Right.
So then it was that. And then so by chance, I went to a place. Do you know where Genghis Cohen is? Up the street?
No.
It's a Chinese restaurant with a little stage in it. There's a separate room. And somebody says, who's playing there? It's Colin Hay. And I'm like, I don't know what's Colin Hay. And they were like, from Men at Work. And I was like, I was never into pop music in the 80s. I'm sorry. I mean, I know Down Under.
Yeah.
And they were like, you got to see this guy.
Yeah.
And so I went in. I thought he was going to be this kind of like probably drunk
Right.
Australian partier.
Yeah,
he's
party
just gone
guy.
solo. They kicked him out of the band.
Yeah.
I walk in and he's like as Scottish as you get, and he playing 6 and 12 string guitar and just still does, but blew my head off.
God.
I said, hey man, I've got a better place for you to play.
Right. Then this is just when you started.
Colin was the first. Like there was a few things booked, like the Eels were booked. He was called E at the time. There was a few things booked, but Colin was the first one that I went.
Yeah.
And would you want to do a monthly? And he was like, monthly? Yeah, I'll do a monthly. Because he was waiting for the next big record to hit,
Yeah. So he was Men at Work was done at that point, right?
Well done, yeah. So
he was.
That's 92 maybe,
Wow.
the end of 92, and they had been done since I think maybe the 85 or something.
So that was a short run for Men at Work.
Yeah, like
He's such a poet. I mean, he's
incredible. And I feel he just sent me a new song. I feel like he's getting better. Honestly,
Yeah.
like
Of course, that guy
know?
like that. No, somebody like that, Leonard Cohen, same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where the writing is the thing,
Right.
And they keep digging,
Yeah.
And the older you get, the deeper you can dig,
Yeah.
Those guys.
Read something. It's a short. Do you want to read something? It's fun for your audience.
For my audience,
Yeah, page 38.
So this is a book that you just gave me.
So this is a compilation of the latter works of Leonard Cohen, and it's his poems, short story kind of drawings. His son Adam, who's a great guy, put it together. I've earmarked the page.
Oh yeah, because I don't see. Oh look, you signed it.
Yeah. I signed it. As
Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not too long.
Oh man, Leonard Cohen. Did you ever see him live?
Oh, yeah.
Did you
and I
book
got to know him.
You did?
Yeah, he's the fantastic guy.
No.
Ricky Lee Jones, who I knew really well, I know really well, has a song that perfectly sums him up, A Monk with a Hard On. But he was way beyond. He was just fantastic.
Well, his
son Adam,
yeah,
was
that really does sum it up. Because he's such like
his
this.
son Adam is the sweetest guy, and
Yeah.
is now he's kind of the key to the estate.
Uh-huh.
He was starting to be a singer songwriter and got signed to Columbia and was playing at Largo, and so Leonard would come and hang out with me in the back, and I was just like,
Really?
and then he would come by. He had an office nearby. He would come by and we'd drink tea together.
He had an office out here?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
He lived here. He lived here for the last half of his life.
When he was doing all the monk stuff.
Yeah, that was Mount Baldy. But he had a
Right.
place on, well, I won't say where it is, but he had an office right up the street from Largo.
Really? And
Yeah.
he would come and just have tea with Leonard Cohen?
He loved Barry's tea, which is Irish. I turned him on to it. He
Uh-huh.
would bring me this lap song, try this, Flanny, try this lap song. He would bring me books of his and sign it to the Prince of Fairfax, my friend Flanny.
Oh
Yeah,
my
it's
God.
the greatest. He was such a sweetheart. And then his daughter had a furniture store around the corner, Lorca, and Adam was
Yeah.
a singer-songwriter. He'd play there.
Wow.
And then, but that's what happened at Largo. Different people. Adam was friends with Pete Yorn, with Chris Stills, with like a lot of people within, that
So
I
it
got
happened
to-
pretty quickly, like when you
Oh,
booking
yeah.
Colin and
Straight
everything.
off.
They all start to.
Yeah, Amy Mann came into town to finish the record, and John
Right.
Brown was like, I'll bring her down. I'm like, okay.
Right.
But then in the meantime, Dr. John played. Like I
Oh.
had some incredible stuff.
In the little spot.
Yeah, 130,
Jeez.
130 people.
Wow.
Read this.
That's
You're
so
going to love
crazy.
this.
All right. This is that's so funny. The poem from Leonard Cohen. Oh, there's the page numbers. Kanye West is not Picasso.
Yeah. Topical.
Kanye West is not Picasso. I am Picasso. Kanye West is not Edison. I am Edison. I am Tesla. Jay-Z is not the Dylan of anything. I am the Dylan of anything. I am the Kanye West of Kanye West. The Kanye West. Of the great bogus shit of bullshit culture, from one boutique to another, I am Tesla. I am his coil. The coil that made electricity soft as a bed. I am the Kanye West thinks he is. Ooh. when he shoves your ass off the stage, I am the real Kanye West. I don't get around much anymore. I never have. I only come alive after a war, and we have not yet had it.
And this is about 6 years ago, maybe,
Jeez,
but the thing is,
Louise.
the reason I brought you this book is because your book. So the thing that people like, Leonard's music was very heavy,
Yeah.
like a bird on a wire.
Yeah.
He was one of the funniest people. I saw him in 1985 in Dublin,
Yeah.
and he didn't have a record deal,
Really?
and he sang Hallelujah, and
Oh
nobody
my
had ever heard it.
Oh my God.
And he was on a European tour because he couldn't get booked in America at the time.
Jeez.
The album that came out is Columbia just were like, no, we don't hear any songs on this. The first song is "Dance Me to the End of Love," which is one of the
greatest songs of all time.
but it's an upbeat kind of like,
Yeah.
and but the thing is, a girl dragged me. It was on Valentine's Day. I have a photograph of it with a heart behind Leonard on stage,
Yeah.
and a girl dragged me to it, and it was one of the most educational things that I've ever seen because it got me to not judge people. Like, I mean, with Colin, having said that, with Colin, I was like, yeah, I'm at work with that, but I went with an open mind.
Yeah.
And was so rewarded from it.
Yeah.
You know, like by just going, okay, because everyone has levels. Leonard was one of the funniest things he would say, like,
You mean in his show?
oh, between songs, he'd be like, listen, there's a road. We've all taken a road, right? Who hasn't taken a road? Where does this road go? I mean, do you ever think about it? I'm being goofy, but did you ever think about it? Everyone laughing. And then the song would start off, and then he'd be like, there's a road. It was the first verse of the song. And you'd be like, oh. It was so conversational.
But by 85, like, I mean, wasn't he... in the 70s, he was popular.
Huge in the 70s,
yeah.
Right? And then he put out an album called Recent Songs, and people moved on from singer-songwriters and stuff. Like Dylan was, like, in 1985, Dylan was working with, like, Dave Stewart with When the Light Comes, you know, When the Night Comes Falling from the Sky. They were all trying to get hits and stuff and be relevant because of MTV.
So the music business had shifted, and these guys
and they were all
kind of a little left in. Right.
And Leonard ended up in the greatest space because his last record was one of his greatest, called Thanks for the Dance, which came out after he died.
Right.
And it's just simple guitar.
Yeah.
Him telling it's funny, it's poignant.
Yeah.
But anyway, in your writing, it reminds me of Leonard because he was very optimistic in his own. He went through hell, you know, but he was very optimistic. He loved his family. He had 2 kids.
Yeah.
And in his writing, it's reflective of yours. You're not always going for the gag.
Right.
But the gag is there, and that's life.
Right.
You have to find the gags.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that is a huge compliment.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe this. This is so perfect because I'm traveling tomorrow.
Ironically, I give it to Colin as well. I bought a bunch of copies.
Oh, yeah? Oh, I'm going to take this with me.
I'm trying to keep the local bookstore alive, and I've bought like maybe 10 copies of this.
Wow, that's
But the
so
other book
great.
that I was
There's
gonna
another Leonard Cohen, thin one.
There's many. Like, he's got anthologies of poems. Spice Earth. There's many, like,
yeah.
you know.
My sister would give me one of those. Oh, this is so great.
The Longing is another one. But this is a compilation of a lot of those things. But there's another book that I was going to bring you, and I just couldn't find it, so I ordered it for you. Are we done?
No, I just want to make sure everything's still recording. This is my panic of not having a producer.
There's another book called called Bread Boy, the Teenage Kicks.
Oh,
and it's about a guy my age in Belfast growing up with, like, ABBA's on the radio, and he's trying to figure out life and girls and stuff, and he works at a bakery.
Oh, really?
And you'll love it.
That's so great.
You might find it. It's called Beach. No, it's called, I don't know, keep saying beat. It's called Bread Boy Teenage Kicks.
Okay.
And his name is Tom Macaulay. He grew up in the Protestant side of Belfast. And it's really good. And it's one of the books that I read a while ago, and I went back to look for it, and I was like, by the way, I don't know if it doesn't look the same here, but I have a corner that has, you can't get to the corner now, but I know where everything is.
Right.
But, like, I pulled out
what's in the corner? What do you mean?
all the LPs that I want to hear right now, all the books that I'm reading.
Oh,
right
really?
now. And, like,
all your stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of it's very deep, and then some of it's goofy poems and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm finding that I'm just, like, picking and reading certain parts. Mm-hmm. And then in the meantime, there's one book that I'm reading, but then there's other bits coming in and stuff.
Do you find that's a recent phenomenon? Like, this is during the pandemic,
my wife's
right?
Like, she's reading 3 at the same time.
It's like you almost have to teach yourself to be able to focus because you're so used to the scattershot information that's been coming in.
Well, she said a funny thing is I turned her on to this book by a writer called David Spitz, who wrote a great book called Divided Soul on Marvin Gaye.
Oh,
It's the biography of Marvin Gaye.
Right.
And he also wrote the lyrics of Sexual Healing, so they were very close. They knew each other, and he did a good book on Aretha Franklin. But my wife and I were listening to something. She goes, I didn't know Marvin did this song. And I went, yeah. And I said, you should get his... you should read his book. So she's reading it on Kindle.
Right.
And it gets so heavy that she's just like, I had to read something else just to balance it out.
Yeah, I know. You have to do that. So when you were a kid, when you were growing up, if I could bring it back to food for a minute.
Yes.
Was your mom a good cook?
Great cook.
She was?
But traditional, but the funny thing is, she'd always have surprises. So Ireland was meat and potatoes. That's all we could really afford. So,
Right.
But I mean, she would put a pork together, and it was like...
Oh.
And then from a very early age, I've always been... I can eat pork, occasionally lamb chops, but beef makes me... I could fall over asleep if I ate one thing of meat.
You're out?
I don't know what it is. I'm just allergic, you know.
Oh, really?
Like, I read that...
Your system rejects it?
I read that, like, at the age of 45, Bono became allergic to red wine. And then they were like, well, no, it's the phosphates. Mm-hmm. You can have it without that. Or something.
Right.
So, you know,
yeah.
And... But with red meat, I would always just be like, almost like eating turkey dinner.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa. So she would make things, and she wouldn't make... Everyone had to eat the dinner. Like, it wasn't like, you can have your thing.
Right, yeah.
But so Fridays were we were born into a religious thing, but we weren't religious. Friday, you just didn't eat meat. It was
Right.
fish.
Yeah.
So she'd get pretty jiggy with fish.
Oh,
it was
yeah?
good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then Sundays was the ultimate dinner. And she wouldn't have work, so she would just like...
For just you guys, or was it cousins?
just us.
It was, yeah.
Every so often we would go to my grandfather's house, and my grandmother was an amazing cook too.
Oh, yeah?
And she had money. So she would have like... You'd have your lamb chops with a little mint sauce, like real mint.
Yeah.
Like, and you were
look
like,
at that mint.
oh,
Yeah.
Jesus. and you'd eat with silver knives and fork. Like, I mean, real thing.
Do you still
know.
crave that stuff now?
Yes, I crave a lot. My mother made, for all of our birthdays, would make a chocolate cake from scratch from Cadbury's chocolate.
Oh.
And it is one of the greatest things.
Oh my God.
And my sister passed the recipe on to my wife. And so every birthday that I have, she makes this Cadbury's.
She does, and does she make it the same way?
The kids love it. Like anyone that's ever tasted
Really?
the thing go, okay, this is the greatest thing I've ever tasted.
But you need Cadbury chocolate.
You need Cadbury's drinking chocolate for
Uh-huh.
and it, like for the base, and then for the toppings, it's like, you know what Cadbury's flake is? You get that crumbly
No.
thing.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
then chocolate
those little
buttons on top.
shavings
It never
kinda.
ends. It's Cadbury's, more Cadbury's. But it's not like a decadent, like, you know, one of those big dark chocolate cakes. It's,
Yeah.
it's very light
Oh really?
with a cup of
Ooh.
tea, Barry's tea.
Oh, what a great thing that this recipe found its way to your
So
wife.
there's a few things like that. So my mum would make like her version of coq au vin or her version of like whatever it is, and you know,
Yeah.
and the one thing was I never liked onions, so she would go light on onions,
Oh,
you
nice.
know.
Yeah.
But then suddenly, right before the year that we were leaving Belfast, she came home one night and she's like, "I'm done with fish." I'm like, "Yeah, we're good. We're done with fish." She goes, "Curry." We're like, well, "What is curry?
Oh
What is curry?"
yeah.
Because by the way,
Where'd she find it?
she got it in the supermarket, and a nurse that she worked with was like, "Hey, there's this place that does curry."
Okay.
And that nurse was more traveled than my mum was and
Yeah.
stuff. She was like, "Check this out." And so she brought it in and a little thing, said, "Try this." My mum was like, "Oh, our kids would love this." But the thing is that I've never had fast food. Because when we were kids in Belfast, there was no McDonald's, there was no Carl's Jr., there was none of that shit. There was
Right.
no sodas.
Right. Oh really?
There was a thing called Fanta, which was a fizzy orange
yeah,
drink.
yeah.
And then there was Club Orange, but they weren't like Diet Coke or Dr.
Yeah.
Pepper, any of that shit. So
Hitting you over the head with.
I still haven't gone, I've never had a Dr. Pepper.
Really?
I don't drink Diet Cokes,
So
sodas,
great.
don't eat
Good
burgers.
for you.
The meat thing put me out of the burger thing.
Oh yeah, the burger thing.
But never had a hot dog.
Never had a hot
Never
dog.
had a hot dog. Because I went when I was, I think, 12, again in Belfast. I went to the Denny's factory who made sausages. And they showed us as a school trip
Oh
from
no.
the pigs.
Oh no.
Oh, look at that. Oh! You know.
Oh no.
Yeah. Zzz, and then you'd follow it through.
Oh.
It was traumatic. The following year, by the way, they were like, "You think it's bad in Belfast? We're going to take you on an educational trip." Guess where we went? Auschwitz, Dachau, and Belsen.
Oh my God.
Yeah. You think you got it bad?
Oh my God.
People have it worse than you. And you're like, well, I'm not arguing.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
in wintertime, they brought us to Auschwitz.
Oh
And
my.
by the way, this is before there was a gift shop. This was grim.
Yeah. What was there at the time?
It was just like, should we go in? I mean,
Was
seems
it like-
disrespectful? It
Yeah.
was, they brought, and Germans would bring school buses to go, we will
Jeez.
never have this again.
Holy cow.
But I think the
winter.
Jewish people themselves like preserved the areas and stuff, and because also there was like skeletons there were people that hadn't been buried that are just like the ashes, and they would find bones and stuff. It was fucking grim. And this, I'm talking about like this is around the time John Lennon died. Like this is around like late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah. Welcome to the dark side.
Yeah. Did you do your
Jeez
sponsorship
Louise.
yet? You got your wine?
No, my buddies at Wine Access, I don't think they have an ad this week.
Oh.
Yeah, they do every other week. But now they love you.
Yeah.
They are a good company.
Would you be? So I was listening to you talking about the wine. Would
Yeah,
you?
we've never drank wine together.
No, but Chris Thiele, who's
Yeah.
a mutual friend,
Yeah.
is big wine guy.
Oh yeah.
Right, and
Big
he has
time.
the hookup in New York. The guy that.
The guy
right?
who married a girl who I went to school with.
Really?
Yeah. High school.
But Chris would just like he's the
so-
most beautiful snob about it. He knows what it is, and if it was a blindfold test, I would trust him.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
I literally every time I open up a bottle that's decent, I text him immediately.
Yeah.
Anytime I'm in a store and confused about Barolos, he loves Barolos.
Right.
He guides me through it. He's got that that musician head.
Right.
Where he remembers, like you, he remembers a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah.
stuff. So like I'll like learn and be like, oh, I love this wine so much, and then 2 weeks later forget exactly what it
Right.
was and where the region was and stuff. Chris is an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I have at home. I
In
pulled
the
it out
best
last
way.
night because when you were talking about wine, I was like, I wonder if I still have this bottle. It's moved with me every place since. So when I first came to LA, I drove across the country. I wasn't sure if I was going to stay. This is before the guy says, "Hey, my brother's doing a bar." You know? And so I was staying down at the beach, and it was on where the numbered streets are in Venice that goes into Marina del Rey. And I remember somebody saying to me, "I'm going to get a job at the Ritz-Carlton. They're opening a Ritz-Carlton right here in Marina." And I was like, "Oh." And at that moment, I was already kind of like, this is January, 77 degrees.
Yeah.
The idea of going back to Boston was terrifying.
Yeah.
And I was already kind of thinking, maybe I could stay here for a few months, you know. So I said, I'll tag along with you. So I went along, and they were doing an open thing it hadn't opened yet. They were still finishing the construction of the Ritz-Carlton there.
Yeah.
And they're like, we need bartenders, we need bar managers. And I said, I'll do a bartender. I'm great at bar stuff. And they were like, this is high end. Like, you need to know your Courvoisiers, your wine. You need to know the difference between brandy and Courvoisier, you know, and all this. And I was like, I know it all. So before you know it, the following week, I'm in a tuxedo with a name badge and doing an orientation class. And I'm like, I guess I'm here now. And so it didn't last long. I worked for 6 weeks. I quit the day before they opened to the public.
Oh, really?
I had to wear a tuxedo, and I kept fucking around. I was not into it. And it had Flanagan, a gold name badge that said Flanagan, and one of the bar backs, his name was Jesus. I said, let's switch. So I'd wear Jesus, right? And I'd walk around, and people would be like, Jesus? And it's not Jesus, is it? And I'm like, it's whatever you want. And so they were like, they knew that I didn't want. So I said to the bar back, he loved me. We just make fun of the whole thing all the time. And I said to him, I said, listen, I'm out of here. I'm not going to wait until the fucking thing opens. I just loved this 6 weeks that we had. But at that point, I knew that Largo was going to happen. So it all happened very fast.
Oh, cool.
So I said, but listen, you were great, and I'm going to give you my number. Call me anytime. This is a little guy from the Dominican Republic, you know, and his name was Jay. I don't know if it was his real name, but maybe Jay for Jesus. I don't know. But anyway, so I'm pulling out of the parking lot, and he comes running after me. I'm like, what are you doing? And there was a security thing too, and he goes, I got you something. You've been so nice to me. Nobody's been nice to me. I got you something. And he gave me a bag, and I went, oh, man, thanks so much. And I put it in the passenger seat. And I said, call me now, you know. So I get home, and at that point in Venice, I lived right where Zach Galifianakis, like right across the street from his house. People kept breaking into cars, like sleeping in them and taking shits in your car. Like it was fuck off, hunky, you know. And so I decided better bring everything in. So I brought it in, and it was a bottle of red wine. It was a 1953 Chateau Lafite Rothschild.
Oh my God!
And I still have it.
You still have it?
Yeah, and I've kept it like I looked at how to keep you know, a wine, so you keep it in a cool area and all that, so that the temperature controlled. And I was thinking today, maybe we should just bust it out, like just open it, and it's probably piss.
Well, I don't know.
They hold.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's, you know, one of the epic.
The other great thing about the Marina del Rey, so the week before they opened.
Is this your way of asking to do the podcast again?
No. The week
we should
before,
do that.
I should do my stories. I have stories. The week before the Ritz-Carlton opened, this actually happened. It was in the LA Times. Two guys pulled up in a and it's just a white van with overalls on. And they went up to the girl behind the desk, and they were like, we're here for the rug. She's like, what? She goes, there was a huge Persian rug that was $75,000 gift from some Shah, one of the Shahs of Iran or whatever.
Oh my God.
And it was a gift to this hotel because he had bought the penthouse, right? And so it was in the lobby, and we were here to clean the thing. Oh yeah, the paperwork's there. We're just gonna. So they moved this big vase out of the way, and they rolled this thing up and took off.
Just robbed it.
No security cameras, no nothing.
Oh my God!
And I was like, that's my
brilliant.
That's me.
I
love that shit.
That is brilliant.
And I quit the following week, and I'm like, I'm the rug.
God.
I'm out of here.
Man, oh man. So when am I back on stage at Largo? What do you think? What's your best estimate?
So here's a bit of breaking news. So Conan's
been doing it there.
Conan's going to keep doing it.
He is.
Yeah. And he's determined to kind of just keep going. Now, here's the thing: is we don't know, and
no one knows.
If truth be told, like I was just thinking when I pulled up to the door, I was thinking that when Cynthia and I, when this all went down, and your daughter found out she's going to New York, and we were all excited, and then there was the Disney recital.
That's right.
It's pretty much the way I thought it was going to play out. I thought it would be not this year. We're going to have shows.
Yeah.
I do feel that maybe in March.
That's what I have in my head.
Right.
I have March in my head,
and I do think before then, if the landlords are cool, we could do things with like, hey, this is safe.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But the little room that I have.
Yeah.
So Conan has the theater.
Okay.
And he's doing technically 5 days a week. their schedule is the best.
Yeah.
They're in and out in a few hours.
Oh, that's great.
Nobody gets hurt. There's 6 people.
6 people?
He's having a blast.
That's great.
Richter shows up.
Yeah.
Just shouts stuff from the seat and stuff. So it's really good.
That's great.
And they're lovely. Like, all of them are pros.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
total pros.
I love them.
They're really great. And
Yeah.
Conan himself is like, he's a special dude.
Yeah.
His producer's even better. Like Jeff Ross.
Jeff, yeah.
Just gets everything. It's like,
So great.
Just tell us what we need to do.
Yeah.
There's no drama.
They've been doing it forever.
Right. And so they've got insurance for the place. They're paying some of the rent and whatever.
Wow.
But the little room's sitting there, and I was thinking, And so I talked to you about it the other day. So I just put a photograph up on Instagram of it, and we put the same curtain that's in the big stage.
Yeah.
Not the same curtain, another curtain, and we redesigned the stage, and I'm going to do 30-minute sets. I'm going to do a subscription series to the Largo audience or whoever.
Right.
And Jackson, the Watkins family, John Bryan, every Friday night.
Wow.
It's going to pre-recorded, but in your email box, you'll get a Largo thing. And Mike, I'm going to get Mike to do a DJ set or do some of his songs, whatever it happens to be. But that every Friday, because if it's between now and March, and then I want to do some political fundraiser stuff too. So, but anyway, I'm going to give people for
a chance to
for a reasonable price every Friday night. You're going to get a half hour of something from Largo,
right?
And the camera, it's beautiful the way it's set up. The camera is going to be like the audience. So I'm going to tell Sean and Sarah, like, play to that camera, talk to the camera,
right.
Because somebody's, and it's just my way of trying to figure out.
That's
like,
great.
Yeah, because I think by September, October, the weather changes. We're like, are we still doing this?
Yeah, no, I know.
And we will be still doing this.
We will still be.
By all accounts, the CDC and Fauci are saying, look out for this winter. It's going to be the worst.
Yeah, I know.
So the thing that we can't...
Till our vaccine comes in. Would you take the Russian vaccine right now?
No, I wouldn't take the American vaccine right now. But but I'm not like fucking Robert Kennedy Jr.
It's too early.
Fucking maniacs.
No, it's just too early.
I do trust Fauci. I trust a lot of people. There's a lot of people in the government I do not trust.
Sure.
And I really believe that. I'd love to talk to Bill Burr about it because that would be a 12-hour conversation. But what I was going to say is that the true numbers of what's happening, I believe that there's at least 20 million people infected. Right now.
Which is kind of encouraging because not that many people...
It is
in comparison have gotten sick from it.
It is encouraging until you hear what it does to your body, and that even people who think they're getting over it, when the flu hits, and your body's got this in its system, your immune system's fucked.
Oh, really?
So they're saying that like the meeting of having COVID and the flu is gonna wipe a lot of people out.
Oh, really?
And not just old people.
Right.
But like California right now, it's like I read that 70% of the new cases are all under 40.
I know, and
it's like, not because we wiped out all the old
and all these people getting tested who have it. They don't even, they feel just like we do right now, and it just kind of bounces off.
But I think that my here's my head. My head is almost like being back in Belfast. It says, okay, so we don't see an end in sight here, but how do we make it the best we can every day?
Yeah,
I am preparing for a thing at Largo where with Conan to keep going so he can go during the day, we can do things at nighttime.
Great.
Even if the audience is diminished because people don't have money, because there's going to be a big hit from this, right?
Sure.
That we do cheaper shows and we can still try and give the landlord some money.
Yeah.
I feel that COVID-19 is not the last COVID. There's going to be another one.
Right.
Or if this thing mutates, that vaccine's no good.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I feel like we just can't give up and just go,
No, you got to be creative. I mean, that's the real inspiring thing to me is how aggressively everybody from schools to entertainment to travel are just getting creative and jumping on it and being like, okay, well, what do we have to do? What do we have to do to make this
But I've changed a lot even in terms of like, so I was so spoiled at Largo that every show from the old Largo to the new York, pretty much every show sells out.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
And I tell Michael, the manager, he's great, and he's been with us forever. I'm like, if for some reason this is half full, I'm not going into the room.
Right.
I can't take it when it's not full. And it's not a success or a failure thing that I booked because I book everything.
Yeah.
It's not like, it's just shit happens and people, and a lot of the times there was a show that we did like was remarkable. Like I counted 48 empty seats and it was sold out. I was like, what happened? They were like, they just didn't come.
Yeah, yeah.
They bought tickets and they're like, yeah, enjoy it. I'm not going.
Right.
But also it was flu season, ironically enough. This was like last November. It was the highest number of empty seats on a sold out show. And I was like,
wow.
And you can't sell tickets at the door because somebody might show up late and you know, where's my seat? But I feel like now I'm kind of like, when you did that show, and did Saga just do it? I saw he posted something.
Yeah. Just like
That's
20 people in the audience.
Yeah, let's just do it. Let's just fucking do it.
No, especially like in that little room too. It's like
it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And as a performer,
right,
we've spent our whole life playing in front of 5
That's
people,
right.
10 people, 20 people, and it's enough.
But I think as long as people feel safe, then it'll be a better show.
Yeah.
I think that if it's not safe and even if it's a little bit dodgy. I think that the comedy's not going to be that good. I think it has to be people.
That's what worked when I did it the other night because it's a huge studio space
Right.
with high ceilings and
Right.
open garage doors.
Did Todd Glass just do it?
No.
Todd Glass, I talked to him today. He's doing
Yeah.
great, and he was telling me he did a thing last night, and they had a green room,
Mm-hmm.
and so they're asking. It's really smart. They're asking people, give us your feedback, performers, and he was like, forget the green room. I want to pull my car up. That's my green room.
Yeah.
And you come out and tell me when to go on stage.
Right.
And they were like, what a great idea. But
Yeah.
the green room's there if you feel safe. And he goes, I'll bring my own water. I'm
Yeah.
not touching anything.
Yeah, we gave everyone a new microphone.
Yeah,
We had a
that's
sponsor
perfect.
that gave them a mic.
That's perfect.
And then they could keep it
But
so
you know,
they can
for
bring it to the
years-
next show.
For years, many performers that I know, because of me, have always bought their own 58.
Oh, really?
Because I say, you go into a bar,
Yeah.
people are spitting into that
I
fucking
know.
thing. You're on tour. You're
I
gonna
can't
get
believe
sick.
it. That's why I
You're
think
gonna get
comedians
sick.
aren't going to get it.
But
because
I'm
we played.
obsessive. I like even the sound guy at Largo. I'm not obsessive, but the
Yeah.
sound guy at Largo, I'll say to him, "Hey, could you wipe the microphones down?"
Yeah.
I don't even wait for it. I have my own wipes. I wipe every microphone.
Yeah, smart. I know. We really lived like animals for a long time.
Yeah.
It's
yeah, but
really
I think,
crazy.
I think that it's I find all of this. You know, I had this romantic notion I was talking to John Bryan about when I'm 60,
Mm-hmm.
which is 5 years away. I said I'm going to really get into classical music. I'll have more time.
Yeah.
I'll have more time.
Uh-huh.
And this has been the great kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm too young for classical music. I'm still listening to fucking Freddie Hubbard. I want hard bop. I want to hear jazz.
Yeah.
But it has given. It's a brilliant moment in our time.
Yeah.
And I'm really appreciating that it's like, hey,
Yeah. No,
I need
100%.
to call Dan. I need to call who's a big Tom Papa fan.
Oh, yeah.
He has the You're Doing Great hat.
Dan who?
Dan McCarroll.
Dan McCarroll? Oh, really?
Shout out to Dan and his wife Jane.
Nice.
And his friend Keith Urban, who's another fan of Tommy
Oh.
Boy. They bought all the
All my merch?
everything. They bought the hats.
Oh, really?
Dan is the greatest. He was in a band with John Bryan when I first met him.
Oh, wow.
And he was also the drummer from Lloyd Cole's band. So, and he was another guy that came out around the formative time.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he worked his way up through publishing, and then he was the head of Warner Brothers, and he was the head of
Amazing.
Capitol Records. He's a great guy,
Jeez Louise.
but he's a big fan of yours.
Oh,
But he
I
gets
love that.
You're doing
Smart
you're
guy.
doing great,
Yeah, you are doing great.
right?
Flanny, thank you so much for doing
Yeah,
this.
come
This
on.
was so great. Thank you for the book.
Yeah, and,
And,
you'll get the other book.
And enjoy the bread.
What else? I'm going to give somebody a tip, music-wise, to listen to.
Oh, yeah. How about
Well,
that?
Leonard
How about
Cohen-
this? Because I'm going to be flying tomorrow.
Yeah. So Leonard Cohen, thanks for the dance.
Okay. Yeah. I have
Beautiful.
I
Well, the
I
reason
feel
I bring
guilty
it up
that I
is
haven't.
no,
I
but
haven't
it
heard
came up
it.
just as all this went out,
Yeah.
and so
I haven't heard it.
and people kind of shut down for a few months, and like you
Yeah.
were saying, you can't promote during Black Lives Matter. Well, that Leonard's thing came out,
Yeah. No, everything got
That's a
rightfully
great-
pushed
that's
to
a
the side
great,
for a bit.
Really tastefully done.
All right,
record.
that's a good one. Okay, but what about something a little? I'm flying with the family. Got to keep the spirits up.
right. Songs in the Key of Life.
Songs in the Key of Life. Yeah,
That's
good.
it.
Yeah.
And then what's really fantastic is Howlin' Wolf. I've been listening to a lot of Howlin' Wolf.
Oh yeah.
Killing Floor. Who's
Really?
Been Talking.
Yeah?
Just listen to his greatest hits.
Okay.
And it's not just blue. I mean, it's like I love blues, but it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
pretty
that's the
great.
real thing. Yeah.
the early stuff.
Big and gritty.
And then you know what I've been listening to? Oh my God, this is the hot tip. Gal Costa, she's a Brazilian singer.
Uh-huh.
Her 1973 album India was kind of controversial because the cover, it's her in a bikini. It's a woman in the bikini. You don't see,
Right.
You see, and there's a little bit of reveal there, And so
little.
it was banned in Brazil.
Ooh.
And I just got it on vinyl, and they've reissued it with
Really?
the original cover. But the record itself is just. And it's Portuguese. You're not going to understand anything.
I
but
love
it
that.
all sounds
Oh.
like just a warm bath.
Hey, do you ever listen to FIP Radio?
Uh-huh.
Isn't that the best?
You listen, by the way, it is the best. The best to me
Yeah.
is 88.1.
88.1 here in
Jazz.
LA?
Yeah,
Yeah.
K-Jazz.
Well, yeah. No, that's yeah. But
And it's
FIP
had
is
many
good because it'll throw in classical
sure.
in the middle of
Yeah.
all of this other stuff, and it comes out of
One of my
Paris.
indulgences is to take the convertible and to go up Mulholland to the site where you overlook the valley at
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
night time. I'll come home from Largo. I've even done this where I put the kids to bed. They go to bed early.
Yeah.
And the wife goes to bed early. And I'll be sitting there, and instead of watching something on TV,
Yeah.
I'll be like, there's that half hour till Colbert comes on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to get in the car. And I'll go up and I'll listen to K-Jazz
Really?
in a 64 convertible.
Oh.
With it just and the wind blowing. And even when it's cold. And the sparkle of the valley. And I'm like, I'm in the right place.
Ah, it's
This
the
is it.
best. You make me so proud to live in LA.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, whenever you'd be like, "Come on,
Yeah,
we
right.
did it. We made the right decision." And because I always go back and forth, like, where should I be back in? And you just walk in, and it'll be a beautiful day, like in the middle of February. You're like,
Yeah.
"We did it."
Right. But also Todd Glass and I were talking today about this. through the pandemic, I'm hearing from people that I haven't heard from in Ireland for a long time.
Ooh, nice.
And now I moved around. I went to college in Dublin and I
Yeah.
studied, and I was in hospitals, working in hospitals. And so I've been hearing people, and they'll send me photographs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I don't know who that is. That looks like my uncle. It could be my grandfather.
Yeah.
I mean, Ireland has killed them, you know.
I know.
And out here, it's like, whether you're just tanned or you're doing fucking coloring your beard, whatever. We're living the
Walk
life.
around in our cool
We're
hats.
fine. The hats.
We're just fine.
We're doing great hats. All
Thank
right.
you so much,
Thanks for
Flanny.
the
We'll do
bread.
this again,
Thanks for
man,
the
because
bread.
there's so much. I mean, really, we didn't even touch on the acts that have come through, and
Yeah.
there's so much more. We'll do this again
There's
for
gonna
sure.
be more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should
you-
do it when we see the end in sight. Like, you know, because
Ooh.
I've got a few things that I'm really looking forward to planning.
Yeah,
you know?
no, 100%. And the end is coming.
Yeah, for sure.
I know it. I know
also,
it. There's
you know,
too many
that's-
great minds working on this.
Right, but fuck the great minds. Here's the thing: is you just look at history. Like if you
Yeah.
read, you know, if you read anything like from the Golden Bough, you know, all these religious things from the past.
Yeah.
There's phases.
Yeah.
There's phases. Like people didn't even know. Two friends of mine didn't even know that the Improv was a place called the Ash Grove before that, where Lightning Hopkins and Muddy Waters and the greatest blues guys would play, Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee, right up until like
Jeez.
1 week it was the coolest club in America. It was the Vanguard in New York.
Uh-huh.
And it was the Ash Grove in LA, and it was the Improv. And a week later, it was a comedy club called the Improv.
I didn't know that either.
And Jackson Browne and Ry Cooder would go there and just look at Sleepy John Estes.
Amazing.
Or Mississippi John Hurt. And they're
There
like,
is that thing, and I don't understand
LA.
it. I don't know what it is. Not just LA. I mean,
no, LA's big.
but a place is a place. A
Right.
place has a soul. A
Right.
place is whatever you put there is going to be successful. Is going to be a
You
like,
and I feel that, and Conan feels it, and,
Yeah.
and the people that we love feel that. My landlord
Yeah.
is looking at the Cornet Theatre as a parking lot.
Terrible.
Really.
Terrible.
You know, and I'll tell people the history of stuff, and they're just, yeah. I don't even know what that
Well, they're
language is.
dingbats. That's why we're friends.
Yeah.
You're the
All
best,
right.
Flanny. Thanks so much.
Hang in.